everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of Boston Sports Nuts, America's hottest new podcast and TV show, seen around the world. Catch us.
By the way, it is seen around the world.
That's right.
I told you somebody in Mexico has been watching.
That's right. I'm Ken Berman. I'm joined by my good buddy Paul Izzo.
Good to be here.
Paul, I'm sure you're glad you're up from that 82-degree weather. 17 in my car when driving over here.
Happy to see you, boys. Happy to see you.
And Jim Russo, how you doing, Jim?
I'm doing good. Happy to see Paul. He brought a few warm days, but
he did when he first got here. We had a few warm days.
I said I'd bring a week of warm weather.
And you,
okay.
and
the
you
second
did.
week is
it's a little too much.
So speaking of warm weather, it means we're heading somewhere closer to the start of baseball, which means we're in spring training. There's a little hot stove stuff going on, or as I call it, lukewarm stove now, because it's not as hot as it used to be. Didn't it used to be hotter when we were younger? Like, wasn't that huge?
Yeah, I would say you're right on that. Yeah.
Paul? Yeah?
this has been the decline of baseball preseason interest is a 30-year slow burn.
Yeah.
Death. It's not something that happened overnight. Even when the team was good, I kind of thought, all right,
I agree.
wake me up when it's March 31st.
Right.
Because
right.
the drama that goes on in the preseason now is just the injuries, the roster moves,
God.
the unsigned free agents, the guy that we thought was going to be great, but he can't hit in spring training, the pitcher who we counted on and signed for $25 million has a bad elbow. Just fill in the blanks. It's year after year after year after year. It's the same thing.
So you're saying it's happening this year too?
It's happening this
You have any
year.
examples of this year, Paul?
No,
like this year?
We got controversies. We got unhappy Red Sox millionaires. It's the same thing over and over.
Can we get into the big one right away?
Go ahead. You're hosting.
Let's get into the big one right away. Jim, start us out here. There's the Bregman-Devers third base situation, we'll call it.
Set it up.
Get it going.
Do you want to, Ken? Go ahead. I know you feel strongly
Well,
about
set it
this.
up.
I'll react. Set it
so
up.
the Red Sox
Yeah.
finally, it took them forever to sign Bregman, but thank you for signing a right-handed hitter and someone who can catch the ball in the field. They signed Bregman, who was a Gold Glove last year, third baseman. Happens to play the same position as our best hitter, Devers, who happens to be a horrible third baseman. Just look at his numbers and his rankings. I think Bregman should play third, and Devers should be more than happy to be the DH and say whatever the team needs to be a better team. That's my opinion. So anybody wants to go in?
Well, that's a
Go in.
show.
Not yet.
All right. Well, first of all, to paraphrase Franco Isola about Kevin Durant and all the times he's been traded and now rumored to be traded again after the season, I don't care if he's happy. I don't wake up and think, is Rafael Devers happy today? I don't.
Good.
I don't care. Second of all, I think this is way overblown. I agree with the writers who've said that. What do we want the guy to say? All right. Yeah, I'll do whatever the team wants. Come on, this is not Little League. This is not Little League. It's not, it's not even AAU. I mean, this is pros. Of course he wants to play third. To his credit, he's worked very hard at trying to become a good third baseman. Unfortunately, he has not succeeded. Okay, but he has worked hard. He wants to keep doing it. He signed a contract that said you're going to be the third baseman under a prior administration. This is an easy thing to fix. I don't care how he feels. Alex Cora, make the decision. If Cora feels the team's better with Bregman, what's Devers going to do? Not hit? Come on.
Suck.
I don't care if he's not happy, Ken. He's going to go
I'm
out
with you.
and try to hit
I'm
a
with
DH.
you.
He'll get used to it. The big thing to me about this is the name that doesn't get mentioned enough in this little
Triangle?
is Christian Campbell. If this guy is what he was in the minors last year, he tore through the minors, then he's got to play second. So where does that leave us? Bregman's got to play third. And I think I may be naive. I think Alex Cora is going to do the right thing. I think he's got the backing of ownership to do the right thing. I think he's got the you-know-whats to do the right thing. He'll do the right thing.
He's got the cachet, too, doesn't he, at this point?
That's the word I was looking for. Thank you. Cachet.
All right, so I'm more in the Jim camp. I think if there's a blame pie, if you look at the Devers Bregman controversy and you say, okay, how do we divide up the blame pie? I'm going to go more with Red Sox management. Okay, because this kind of thing was painfully likely. Right? Right?
Yeah.
You go sign a quarterback during the Brady era, Brady's going to be unhappy.
Right.
You go sign a second baseman during the Dustin Pedroia era, Dustin Pedroia is going to be unhappy.
Yeah.
To go sign a guy that was I looked at the deep I did a deep dive into the defensive stats that major leagues rely on, and this is what I came up with. That Devers has a Devers is below average range in the bottom third of the league and an average arm. Bregman has very good range and an average arm. So really what you're talking about is a problem with range. Devers is more likely to make an error than Bregman. I think if Devers stays at third and improves only a little bit, he's not going to lose you a lot of games at third base. There were only maybe 3 balls hit to third base in an average game. I don't think it's a catastrophe that this is going on. I do agree with Jim that it might put a roadblock into the development of a young player, but baseball teams deal with that all the time. Yeah. The thing about baseball nowadays is guys are so fragile physically that these things tend to work themselves out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So if this kid Campbell is as good as some people think he is, I haven't scouted him personally, but this is what I read, he'll get in there eventually. Something will happen. You've already seen, I don't think Devers has played in the field yet this year.
No. He's got a bad shoulder.
He's got a bad shoulder. Does he really have a bad shoulder? Or is this a cover-up to help his pride when he eventually has to move to DH or first base or somewhere else?
And there's another factor. The Red Sox starting shortstop, who is a very good defender, how many games has he played in the last 2 years?
Yeah.
Bregman may play short for this team because I don't think they're going to move Rafaela in again.
No,
play short.
He's the center fielder.
He's their center fielder. Yeah.
Bregman may end up playing short for games. And the other thing is about controversies like this, and Paul, when you said they tend to work out, that's Terry Francona. I remember one year about pitching, I believe. All these things tend to work out, right? So I agree with you. And the other thing is, when these things get discussed, they always get discussed as if it's a static lineup for 162 games.
Especially in training camp,
Yeah, they're not. They're not
changes
all
daily.
There's no Jim Rice.
Especially nowadays.
The only guy that came close was Duran, who would have played 162 if he didn't get suspended 2 games. And Cora's already said he's not. I think Cora said this. Correct me if I'm wrong. He's not doing that again. There's no Jim Rice that's going to do this.
Right.
So I think it's going to work out, and I think it'll be fine. And it's not as if
Bregman's our shortstop, I'm not thrilled about that because, as Paul said, his range it's okay. It's not great. Shortstop's a whole different position than third base, correct?
Oh, no question.
No,
right?
It's twice as challenging.
Third base is a reaction position.
Right. Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah. I played there, got hit in the head a bunch of times because my reaction was slow.
And,
by the way,
shortstop is a range position.
Right.
I
totally
found
different.
coaching high school ball, we didn't coach it at the highest level, good teams.
You coached, though.
Yeah.
I watched.
Third base is a very difficult position to play.
Yeah.
Very difficult. Shortstop will draw the kid who's been playing ball his whole life, and he's got it dialed in. But third base, you got the bad hops. The guys hit line drives at you. It's a tough position. But the hope for Devers is that he's like Wade Boggs, who got significantly better,
winning a Gold Glove.
Even in his 30s, won a Gold Glove. He was never Brooks Robinson, but he got a lot better, and he was more than competent.
Yeah, my only disagreement with that is that Devers is going into year 7 or 8 or something like that already. He hasn't improved that much, like Boggs did. You know what I mean? I'm not hopeful.
No, Devins hasn't yet gotten better at third.
Right.
That's
It's a lot of years
borne
already.
out.
I mean, he started in 18. What was his rookie year?
Back in the teens.
He won a series.
Yeah,
Yeah,
He was on
18.
the 18.
he was on the
series
18 team.
Yeah.
And we're going into 25. It's like
Well, no one's saying that he's, an above average third baseman.
no,
No.
we said he's below average actually.
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
okay.
I mean,
Paul pointed that out for us.
Right. BaseballSavant.com
Yeah.
has everybody ranked where they rank relative to other players.
All right, let's move on a little bit about the Red Sox though. You want to keep
yeah,
going?
Sure.
So they made a good trade. We all believe.
No, I didn't say that. You said that.
Okay.
Speak for yourself.
Okay. I actually don't know because we'll see how the kid pitches.
Well,
But-
no, was it a good trade at the time it was
Yeah,
made?
we discussed this. Paul didn't like it.
Paul didn't like it. Correct. Okay. Well,
he meant the royal we.
the,
He
right,
liked it.
right.
royal
yeah. Well, let's just put it this way: they've got Crochet in the starting rotation now, and I guess what's the guy who's hurt last? Gelato?
Yeah.
Yeah, Lucas
Lucas. He's
Galito.
back.
Yeah,
Well, he hasn't pitched yet.
Oh.
but he's going to.
Yeah,
He
Thursday,
is?
I think.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. What do you think? What do you think about their starting rotation right now? As
Not
we talk?
excited. Not excited.
I'm with you.
Here's the thing: when a team tells you they have depth at starting pitching, what they're saying is they don't have a horse. And the great Red Sox teams of the last 60 years have had a horse.
Mm-hmm.
Let me go through them. The late
Please
60s,
do.
we had Lombard. In the 70s, we had Tion.
and there's
In
Wyatt,
the
and
80s,
there's
we had
Lyle.
Clemens. In the 90s, we had Pedro. In the 2000s, we also had Pedro and Kurt Schilling. Then we had John Lester.
Don't forget Josh Beckett.
Okay, we had Josh Beckett.
Yep.
Okay, now those guys, to varying degrees, had issues. Then we had Chris Sale in 2018. To say you have depth at starting pitching is a good thing because that means you don't have to scrape the bottom of the barrel on a Sunday after everybody's burned out. You'll have guys. But already we're seeing guys, Garrett Crochet hasn't looked good so far. Galito still hasn't pitched yet. They're already talking about, well, it's a good thing we had depth. Who is the horse?
Didn't
Who
they already
is?
lose
Bayo,
one starter?
Bayo is banged up, right?
Yeah.
Right? He hasn't pitched
And
yet.
the other guy too.
Crawford.
Cutter
Pitched the
Crawford's
most innings as a starter.
Right.
Right.
So,
Bayo and Crawford may not make opening day.
so it's great that they have depth
Unbelievable.
because guys are dropping like flies. But
Already.
who is the stud? And that's where I'm, as a fan, suspicious.
Mhm.
Now, maybe Garrett Crochet is the stud,
Maybe.
but in his first appearance, he didn't look so hot.
Well,
so I'm just I'm
think also-
dubious. I want to see this team
Yeah,
before
agree
I
with
jump
that.
on the
But I think
bandwagon.
we also got to redefine stud a little bit in starting pitching, which I don't like, but it is reality. We're not going to see Clemens, Pedro again. We're going to see a guy that can go 6 or 7 innings. now.
6.
Probably 6.
and maybe get you to 200 innings.
Yes, you're not going to see anybody approach 300 innings. It's just the game isn't played that way. And Crochet, I think, has a chance to be that. And that's what they're hoping. I mean, it's not a lock trade. Like when they got Pedro, he had already, he pitched. The only reason he didn't have a no-hitter was the game went extra innings. I think he gave up a hit. The
right.
guy they knew what they were getting. They knew Beckett had won a World Series and he had dominated it against the Yankees. They knew what they were getting, and then he won a World Series for the Red Sox. We don't know that about. All I can say about Crochet is this: watching his highlight reel, his stuff is nasty. I mean, it is really nasty. I said this on the show. I'm hopeful, but it is. I will readily admit it's not like getting Pedro. Bayo and Crawford might not make opening day.
Unbelievable.
So Richard Fitz and someone else are going to have to take the spots. Richard Fitz.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Who's
thought
got
it
some
was.
stuff, but we'll see.
Gives Ken fits.
I thought it
And
was
I
Richard
think,
Ritz.
too,
The
before
shoe fits.
before long, teams may go to 6-man rotations. I mean, it's been talked about with the Dodgers. It's been talked about with the Red Sox. You got Japanese pitchers coming over. They
what
used
they
to.
do.
They
Yeah.
pitch one starter every day and 1 day is a day off in Japan. That's how they work it. Wouldn't be surprised if we're getting to that. So I agree. We got to see it because the injuries are already
I believe
starting.
last year at one point, the Red Sox average starting pitcher went like 4 2/3, was it, or something like that?
Yeah, that's
That's just, come on, people. Can you pitch better than that? So the Red Sox supposedly have 3 young big guns, from what I've been told. I haven't watched them.
Who told you this? Who you listening to?
The reading in the Globe or something like that. I don't know, somewhere.
Okay.
But thoughts on Campbell, Anthony, and Meyer. Those
all right.
are the 3 guys that I keep hearing about.
Christian Campbell tore up the minor leagues last year, whatever level he played at. I mean, he was just a dominant hitter. He can play second. He can also play the outfield. I think the Red Sox want him at second base for obvious reasons. Marcelo Meyer slipped to the Red Sox, and they were able to take him with the 4th pick, and he was considered an absolute top prospect. He has had a good spring. His problem, he's not finished either season.
Where's he play, Jim?
Shortstop. He is
Ah.
not, but there's a guy you could also move to second base,
Mhm.
but he has not finished either season. He got hurt.
Yeah.
But he is, they have a lot of hopes. The next prospect is the number, if you discount the Japanese pitcher that the Dodgers just signed, because technically when you put him in the mix, he's actually, I think, on a minor league deal. So because of the salary structure they had with him, because he wasn't like Ohtani and Daisuke where they could bid, and it was a different setup.
Yep.
So he is technically qualifies for prospect, and he'd be considered number 1. If you remove him, Roman Anthony is the number 1 prospect in all of baseball, outfielder. And I think there are 2 factors with Roman Anthony. Can he make the team this year? And here's the dynamic. Speaking of injuries, the Red Sox Gold Glove winning right fielder Wilber Abreu has not played an inning and may not be ready for opening day.
These guys are really training in the
Anthony
offseason,
could
huh?
start in right field. The other is another personal favorite of yours, Jackie Bradley. I'm being a little bit sarcastic.
Oh,
But
what do you mean, Jackie Brown? He's not here.
No, but if Rafaela
Thank God.
turns out to be a Jackie Bradley successor where he's a dominant fielder, which he is in center field, he's phenomenal, but doesn't hit, the Red Sox, with the improvement of Jarren Duran in the outfield, Jarren Duran can now play center field.
Yeah, he's got.
This would allow Anthony to play left. So that's the deal on him. Does he make the team? We'll see. And I think a lot of it's got to do with Abreu's status.
Any thoughts on these guys, Paul?
Well, I'll start with Roman Anthony. He's young.
Okay.
He's only 20 right now.
20, yeah, I read that. Yeah.
He's hasn't really filled out. He's a good base stealer.
Right.
I think he had 45 or 48 stolen bases last year.
Right.
Gets on base, has a good on base percentage. Great tools. Looks the part, the whole thing.
Yeah.
Right out of Moneyball. We've heard this before.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that bothered me about the trade for Garrett Crochet, and I agree with Jim when you watch the highlights and read the scouting reports, I mean, he's got electric stuff, is we gave up a lot to get him.
Remind us.
Well, we gave up Kyle Teal, which really bothered me.
The catcher.
The catcher who's a tremendous
because we don't have a
prospect.
catcher.
We have a catcher. Connor Wong's competent.
He's all
Plus,
right.
he's a YD alum,
He
so
is, yeah.
so I am
Can't
going
throw
to.
to second base,
Nice
but
shirt.
that's okay.
Thank you. We're going to bring this one back this year. So I just loved the idea of just going 100% young.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was
Like
cool.
the 67 Red Sox.
Well, just see what you got, and I could get on board with that. You start signing these other guys and paying more than you would have paid Mookie for Bregman. It's
Well, that's.
I don't know.
It's
Well,
just 5 years later. That's why.
My take
I
on
know, but it's
I hated to give up Teal too. As Shaughnessy said, I like this line because I'm a Beatles fan, but he said the three prospects of the Beatles, and their 4th one, Ringo, was traded, which was Kyle Teal, and that's
Right.
true.
Yeah.
You got to give up something to get a pitcher like Crochet. I think it was worth the gamble, but yeah, they gave up. They
If
gave
they
up
got
a lot.
if they got a horse and a stud,
Yeah, the second one with Bregman, to me, it's a lot of money for Bregman. But the way the Red Sox have spent money the last 5 years, I don't care what they spend. My only question on Bregman was, are they better with him or without him? I think they're better with him. And I don't even know if he's going to be here next year.
Well, one of the things I
Because
learned,
they signed, if I could just finish,
I know what you're going to say.
he's got an option after each year.
Right.
I
It's
know.
a 3.
Yeah.
If he goes out and tears up the league, he's going on the market again.
Right. So that's where I was unhappy because,
Right.
look, one of the things you learn when you're an attorney, and Jim can relate to this, I tend not to nitpick other people's negotiations. I'm not in the room. I don't know who had to give up what.
I agree with you.
But there's no way I would have signed him with an option out, with an opt-out. Because the argument is very simple. I'm paying you $40 million. Okay. The only way I'm going to be on the hook for another $40 million is if you have an off year.
right, right.
If you have a great year,
You're gonna want more.
you're gonna leave. That just makes opt-outs after 1 year make no
So
sense
why would the
to
Red
me.
Sox do that?
To get him.
Just
to get him? But I would have
guess.
said,
Because
go
I
sign
think he
somewhere
had
else.
off as comparable or better.
I would have kept the guy they let go who hit 31 home runs last year from the right side, and then you wouldn't have needed the side.
But he's
Bregman.
in your logjam in the outfield. I would have liked to have kept him, but Bregman is a better player than he is, especially on
So-
defense. The thing with Bregman, I agree. After 1 year, it's become the standard, but all right, maybe do it after two. I
Right,
could
at
live
least
with that,
2.
But one?
Terrible.
You have a great year, and then you leave.
Yeah.
If you have a
And
lousy
we're
year,
back here doing this nonsense again,
Right.
trying to find a right-handed bat that can
Right.
play the infield.
and
That's
like
right.
you said, if he has a lousy year, he's opting in.
You're right.
I didn't have a good year, but coming
I'm
back
coming
for
back.
40 mil.
The good news.
Now,
not-
before you get to the next topic, speaking of Bregman,
You think I have a next topic?
I think you got plenty from what I see,
Okay.
which is good. If we were to take the sunny side of the street for a minute, and I'm not saying this is going to happen, but what if all the dominoes fell their way? Bregman plays third. They got a Gold Glover at third. Story plays 130 games. They got a Gold Glover at short or close to it. Campbell becomes some lesser version of Lynn and Rice. Not Lynn and Rice, but, you know,
Has a good season
Yeah.
at second base.
the promise of Tristan Casas at first, who, to his credit, has improved defensively. He does hit 30 homers. And Devers is your DH. And I agree with you, Connor Wong is not an all-star, but he's not terrible.
No.
He can hit.
Yeah. It's not a bad infield. Now, things got to break their way, but that's not a bad infield.
Oh, they could be a good infield if Bregman's at third and Story's healthy.
Yeah, I mean,
At least
Well,
the
the
left
question
side.
is, look, they were a 500 team the last 5 years.
right.
And
Yeah. Overall, you mean?
yeah,
Oh, okay.
and they were a 500 team last year.
Last year, but they've
And
had
a
a couple of
lousy
last
defensive
place
team.
years
Right.
too.
And
So-
a lousy defense.
Lousy defensive
So-
team.
You got to get to 88 wins to have a shot at the postseason.
Yep.
That's a 14-game improvement, net improvement. You got to win 7 and lose 7 less. They're going to be 88 and 74 instead of 81 and 81. That's not easy.
No.
That's not easy. The good news is that the younger players historically are going to get more productive. So there's reason to think that at least 3 of these 4 kids will have a better season than the one they had. If we talk about Devers as an offensive player, he's remarkably consistent.
Yep.
You could almost look at any season that he's had in the last 6 and pull it out and stick it in another season. They're almost like interchangeable.
Really?
27 homers, 89 runs batted in, mid to high 300 on base percentage, decent power, plays a fair amount of games, not super fast on the bases. They're all kind of like Eddie Murray. Eddie Murray used to be like that for the Orioles. Every year he hit 27 homers and drove in 92 runs.
Yeah.
It was like right down the list.
Yeah.
Devers is kind of like that. So that's good production if he's the DH. If he's not the DH, who's the DH?
Well, then Yoshi would probably
Okay.
be the
Well,
DH.
hey, you went into my next
Go.
topic.
Yep.
Where does Yoshida fit in on this team right now, especially if Devers becomes the DH? Because he can't field to save his life.
No, but maybe he plays some left field against right-handers.
He was horrible there,
He's
too.
a tough fit, but I go back to they're not going to have the same lineup for all 162, and he can DH when Devers plays the field. But no, he won't be. He probably will not be
Paying him a
regular
lot of money
starter.
to DH when Devers plays the field.
They did.
Not a great signing overall.
No.
Your thoughts on Yoshida? Any?
Not an outfielder, but he can hit.
Yeah.
And I agree with what we've been saying, all of us, that it's better to have a lot. Remember, we used to watch the Yankees and say, how come we don't have guys off the bench like this?
That's right.
What was it? Sierra?
Ruben
Sierra.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, he's coming up in the 8th inning.
Right.
We got a 1-run lead. They got 2 men on. Here comes Ruben Sierra.
Right.
And we had Bob Bailey coming off the bench. Beetle Bailey.
Oh boy.
I don't mind having guys on the bench that are decent offensive players.
He can come off and hit the ball, and you got him for late innings when other teams go right, left.
Yeah.
Look, I know that it's really unfashionable to say this, and this is definitely my own old school prejudice coming out, but I like offense. Everybody's defense is important, and it wins you a game here and there, but you got to hit the ball.
Yeah, no question.
Yeah.
You got to hit the ball. And if you're strong up the middle, I think you can have a Devers. You can have Yaz when he was 36 was not a great left fielder. We all loved the way he played the wall, but he didn't have a lot of range in left.
That's why they moved him to first.
Jim Rice was
wasn't it?
never a great left fielder in
No.
in road
Neither was
parks.
Greenwell.
No, you can deal with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Yes, I like offense too, and I actually like watching it. But defensively, they have been really bad.
No, you can't be terrible.
And they've been terrible. And they're terrible at the corners, like both corners. Because last year, Cassis got a little better, but he was still brutal for a lot of the season. And they were brutal at third and brutal at first. I don't think you can be both, can you? One of them has to be good.
Well, yeah.
It depends on what you hit.
Yeah.
It's almost like an equation. If you give up a run a game somehow, but you score an 8, I mean.
You remember when David Ortiz would play first base in the World Series?
Yeah.
I don't remember him ever making an error.
No,
No.
he wasn't bad. He made that throw too. The
Yeah.
guy at third.
He was actually pretty good every time he went in.
It was remarkable. Like, he would get in there and you'd go, oh no, David Ortiz, what's going to happen? They're going to bunt. They're going to hit line drives.
Yeah.
I
They
don't
didn't.
remember anything ever happening.
Yeah. You know what? Good thing for him was they did make him a DH his whole. He lasted a long time. He was able to just.
Yeah.
I tell you, he could have kept playing too. His last year was phenomenal.
Right?
Just his feet.
Just his
Yeah.
feet were. That's right.
I
he
think
couldn't-
somebody told him at the All-Star game, you're really going to retire. He goes, well, if you had my feet or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said that no
Hey.
one knows what I go through to get on the
Right,
field.
Right. Can we talk about the bullpen? Is that on your list?
A little bit, sure. Yeah, go ahead.
All right.
I don't know anybody who's in the bullpen, so tell me.
well,
I
I
don't
love
know
the way you
anybody.
prepare for these
No,
shows.
no. Literally the last few years, I don't. They've got a bunch of new
now,
guys
see, I take
again.
a little bit of a different tack with that. I don't know if they'll have a great bullpen, but what I do think is they have an interesting bullpen now.
Okay.
They have Aroldis Chapman now. Is he what he was before? No, but if he comes in and is throwing 97, the Red Sox have not had a pitcher reach 100 apparently in 2 years. Okay, he was a star. Liam Hendricks was a star.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
yeah, they did pick up some interesting guys.
I just think I'm intentionally using the word interesting because it could be bad, but it could be good. The other thing I find very interesting about it is this. At long last, finally, after 3-4 years, after I think maybe a national comedian who's a Red Sox fan or a national actor or a talk show host, they are finally committing to putting Garrett Whitlock in the bullpen.
Oh, yeah.
This guy, we use the term stutter, he was a stud in the bullpen.
Absolutely.
I mean, I have friends that are Yankee fans. I was talking to one of them at the time. I said, I was probably saying something like, thanks for Whitlock. So I think it's interesting. And I'll be interested as a baseball fan to follow it this year. Where before,
Right.
it was kind of like who's who.
So,
but-
according to Tony Maz, who I think his best sport
course
is
it is.
baseball by far,
yeah.
he said Chapman's biggest problem is he comes in, he can't throw strikes.
Right.
And I mean, that's the last thing you need from the guy coming in out of the pen. Walking the guy faces right away. I mean, it puts you in such a
Well,
bad
Chapman's
spot.
not available to the Red Sox if he can throw strikes.
Right.
The thing that Chapman's been one of the great what might have beens in baseball the last
Yeah.
15 years. When he came into the league, nobody was throwing the ball as hard as he can throw it.
Right.
No.
102, 103,
Yeah.
101. A bad pitch for him was 97. You know, but he's always been a little bit wild. And you just say, wow, if he could have controlled that.
Yeah.
But I like having him. I think it's a good gamble.
I do too.
Oh, I
really
do
good
too.
gamble.
Because you know what? You're a little wild and you throw that hard. It's a little scary too. You know.
Yeah.
Backside. Now, do you remember one thing I remember about Devers is he faced Chapman once,
Greatest home runs ever.
and he hit a home run off him that.
opposite field.
Oh my!
Yankee Stadium.
And he crushed it off
It was
him.
over 100 runs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that. That was a.
I
a
didn't mean
good-
to upset your order, but I did.
Oh
want
no,
to
I
get
don't.
that
I don't
in.
have Jim.
Oh,
I have
okay.
no order.
Oh, all right.
There's no order in this court of order.
Okay.
No order whatsoever.
I just think it's going to be interesting to follow.
Okay, before we move on to maybe other baseball and
Yep.
what we think, your overall expectations of the Boston Red Sox. I think here's another thing I agree with Maz, which is ticking me off as what I say it. Even though he knows baseball, he's
does.
just been bugging me lately. Well, I don't listen, so he can't really. I don't know. Whatever. Is that he said the same thing? He said, "I'm not. They got to show me something before I get that." He goes, "People are way overhyping this team and way."
Who?
Who?
A lot
Okay.
of.
That's classic Felger and Maz.
Well,
They claim that people are saying something. Nobody,
Right.
other than perhaps some guy in his basement in Somerville who calls there every day and they blow it into something, is saying that the Red
Right.
Sox are going to be a great team.
not a great team, but way much better than last year.
Well, I think that's a fair prediction that they'll be better than last year.
I don't listen. In my whole from age 7 on, I think I said, "Oh, next year." Wait till next year. The Red Sox are going to be great next year. They're going to be great, unbelievable in every, and they've had great years, obviously. I don't have that feeling inside me for some reason right now. I guess I'm still skeptical because the last 5 years with the last place finishes and, I mean.
Well, can I make a general comment about the Red Sox?
Yeah.
The Red Sox are similar to the Bruins. And here's what I mean. The Bruins had a run from 06 to 2018, the Brad Marchand group, and there were a bunch of guys, and I think people thought that team was still around. It's actually only Marchand.
Yeah.
There's
Right.
not one other guy
Yeah, he's the only one left.
from that group. Zdeno Chara, all the other guys.
Well, what's his name? They're still
gone.
there.
Oh, Bergeron.
Bergeron.
No.
Krejci.
Prachy. They're all gone. And I think the Red Sox had a little of that. There was that run, and there was some Pedroias and some Ortizes and guys in there that were always around, and that's over. We got to get used to the fact that they are literally starting over at Fenway. Most of their guys that they're counting on, are young. Whether it's Casas, he's not.
No.
What's he
No.
like in his third, fourth year?
And he hasn't played that much.
Wong, the outfielders, Abreu. The only one that's got that little the Brad Marchand is Rafael Devers.
Right.
He's the one. And just like the Bruins fans have had to realize that they got to start over, the Red Sox have to literally start over. And they have not started over in my lifetime.
Yeah.
They have not. That 67 crowd morphed very seamlessly into that early 70s team that had Evans and Ben Ogilvy and Cecil Cooper, which morphed into that great late 70s team. I guess the only time that they really started over might have been the early 80s when they lost. I'm going to say that they had to start over then. They brought on a lot of new guys, and then eventually they got Boggs. But even that team had Jim Rice and Yaz, that kind of.
Yep.
It's been, this Red Sox team is a complete break from the past, other than Rafael Devers. It's a brand new group of guys.
Yeah, my take on the season is I'm more optimistic than last year.
Yeah, I'm more hopeful.
I think, but to say they're going to do one thing or the other, there's just too many random factors like injuries and, we don't know about the young players. So I think, would it surprise me if they reached that 88 game wins and made the playoffs? Not really. Would it surprise me if they only improved 2 or 3 games? Not really. So I think it's just, but I do think the word I used before, I think they are interesting. Doesn't mean, I think they're more interesting with Crochet, with Chapman, with Hendricks, with the 3 young players, if and when they play, with a healthy Story if he plays, with Bregman, who is a winner. They're more interesting. Rafaela, boy, if he could hit, because he is a joy to watch in center field.
Yeah, and Durant
He is the Phoenix Call of the Boston Red Sox. Phoenix Call is a superior center fielder for the YD Red Sox. They're interesting. And by the way, Duran became an interesting player last year.
Well,
and Abreu, I mean, he's not Dwight Evans, but he plays the toughest right field in baseball and won a Gold Glove.
And he's a decent offensive player.
And he's a decent. That is quite an accomplishment for a young player.
Yeah, I'm saying I'm more hopeful than I've been in a couple of years.
That's my word.
I'm not sure.
No, they got. I like watching young players.
Me too.
Yeah, I
do
too.
Yeah, and they got a few good ones, so we'll see. Actually, before we move on, and
are we moving on or are we wrapping up?
Oh, what time is it?
We only got a few minutes. We got a few minutes.
Okay.
Then get it in.
No, I was just gonna say that we're taping after the Oscars. That movie thing they do where they give out trophies and stuff like that. So there was 10 movies nominated or something like that for Best Picture. I hadn't seen one of them. What's that say about me? Like I'm just not. Any thoughts on the Oscars before the Academy? I know we didn't discuss this, so just. And then the only other thing they had on this was what teams you think are really, once again, I think Yankees, Dodgers, of course, but that was my next thing, overall baseball stuff. So go wherever you want. I don't care.
I'm reluctant to go down this road, but the Oscars have become highly politicized. The movies that win now are movies that speak to a particular issue that's of interest that year. If you think about the movies that have won Best Picture in the last 7 years, I think the combined, at least in the case of 6 of them, the combined box office of those 6 movies is like 1/20th of what Titanic earned the year it came out.
Huh.
So Hollywood is no longer celebrating great cinematic success. It's celebrating, like the movie that won last night,
Nora,
is an independently made movie about a sex worker, and the woman who gets up at the end and says, "I honor all sex workers." I don't know how the average American hears that and says, "Geez, I'm not sure that's the Hollywood that I grew up with." So I just think that that's part of what's going on here. Is we're not going to the movies anymore as a nation.
Yeah, I'm not.
The movies that people go see are cartoons and superhero movies.
Yeah.
What's the last great movie that everybody went to see?
Well,
Can you name it?
I haven't gone since COVID. Back to the theater. Believe it or not.
Why?
I don't know. We just have not gone since COVID.
Well, I've never cared about the Oscars.
I don't care about them either.
Other
Except
than to say I love the Dylan movie. Thought all the actors were great, and I love the movie.
yeah, that's the one I want to see. Out of the ones that were on the list, that's the one I want to see.
Yeah, so I saw 2 of them. I saw the Dylan movie and I saw Conclave,
Oh, I saw Conclave too.
both in the theater, and I enjoyed them. But I didn't think they were cinematic masterpieces.
Okay. All right.
No.
Interesting. Yeah, like I just thought it must be me because I've heard of a couple of the movies. Like I heard of Wicked. There's no way you couldn't hear of Wicked. I haven't seen it, but I heard of it. And the other one, I just hadn't heard of most of them.
All right. Can I answer your last question?
Yes.
Okay.
Overall baseball,
to me,
where are we going?
The usual suspects are up there. pun intended movie.
That was a good movie.
Yeah, Yankees, Dodgers. To me, one of the big things this year, and we could do a whole show on how the Dodgers did this,
Unbelievable.
but one of the big things to me will be how many games can they win? They have one of the great rosters right now
Unbelievable.
of, I don't know how many years. And they did it all within the rules.
Yeah, you just spent money. It's okay.
No, but they may need to tweak that rule about the deferred money because that's how they were able to do
Right.
this, to get Ohtani to agree with that.
Yep.
But I'm curious if they break the all-time record. Not win the World Series. They've done that. But I'm curious if they're the Warriors of whatever year that was, where the Warriors beat Jordan's Bulls in 173 games. That's my other curiosity. And then the other thing is, can the Red Sox make the wild card? And the Yankees, what's the effect on Judge of losing Soto? But he's had great years without him, so I don't think it's going to be that big. He does get to move back to right field, where I think he's more comfortable.
In other sports, I think it's easier to create a stacked team because in baseball, the X factor is always pitching.
Mm-hmm.
So you can go sign 9 Hall of Famers, and if your starter blows out his elbow, that tends to make it tough to get through the postseason. And we see in baseball, even these stacked teams, when they get in the postseason, very often don't win.
Right.
Because some other team has a guy that can win 2 games, and then another game, the ball bounces a funny way, and now you've lost a 5-game series.
Right.
And then in the 7, anything can happen. The better team tends to win in the postseason in baseball, but it doesn't happen way more frequently than it does in the NBA.
Oh.
The NBA is almost 1 beats 8, 1 beats 4, 1 beats 2.
Yeah.
It's just in recent history, there's now 5 teams that can win the NBA championship, where a lot of their history there was only 2.
Yeah, 2,
Right.
3.
Yeah.
Tops.
But no, so I agree. The Dodgers are stacked beyond belief. But since COVID, how many times did they won it? Once, right?
Right.
Twice.
Twice. So,
Yeah,
they win it every year.
I agree with you one thing about, like, the Dodgers are, to me, look like if I had to bet money today, of course that's who you'd bet. But you're right. Like, you get 2 injuries to starting pitching.
Yeah, here's the thing though. Like Clayton Kershaw, I think is their 6th starter maybe.
Right, yeah.
And Ohtani could pitch
this year too.
They handled it last year.
Mm-hmm.
They only had 3 starters going into the playoffs and won the World Series.
They got Walker Buehler to pitch great in the postseason.
Well, that's the other thing. We didn't mention Walker Buehler with the Red Sox.
Right,
he could be good for them. But
Yeah.
he pitched very well in the World Series.
He pitched well the other day, too.
Yeah,
Before
he
you
did.
sign off, Ken, can I make one last comment?
Absolutely. Matter of fact, Jim, I was going to ask you both, do you want to make one last comment?
I would like to.
Oh, please do.
Okay. I'd just like to throw out this question out there that I thought of yesterday when I was thinking about the Red Sox. How do I phrase this? Has there ever been a situation that you can recall where an owner of a baseball team wins 4 world championships I think this is his 22nd year owning the team, 23rd. 4 world championships. And then in the same town, as they like to say, we have a owner of a football team who's won 6 Super Bowl titles in whatever years he's owned the team, and who finishes like 30 or 31 rating of owners among players. And right now, John Henry for the Red Sox, and I'm not saying it's not justified, is just constantly criticized for the Red Sox approach of since 2018. I find it to be an absolute phenomenal situation that they could be that successful, and it's come to this.
Short memories?
Well, I think those two have different problems.
Yeah,
I think
know
Bob
that.
Kraft is relatively popular with the locals. I think that his problem is he's not so popular with his players.
Right.
Yeah.
I think in the case of John Henry, people have bought into the narrative, which I think is deserved, that the team is no longer spending money on players and has turned Fenway into a tourist destination.
Trap,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now, Henry would say, no, we're rebuilding the farm system. We're bringing up players. We're doing it that way. And the way we were doing it was not sustainable. We'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's an
I
interesting.
just find it interesting.
Yeah, these guys that have
Said
won
that word a lot tonight.
10 championships in between them, and they're getting crushed sometimes in our city.
So I did have one final comment.
Yeah,
I want to thank.
he did a comment.
I want to thank Evans Cardillo, our
Evan.
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 Oh, I always call him Evans. Evan Cardillo, our outstanding producer,
Yeah,
who does such
And
a great
director.
job for us.
Well
He's a
said.
producer, director. He does our audio.
Yep.
We don't send enough shout out to him.
And can we
And our graphics.
And our graphics, does our social media. We are blessed to be in Westwood. Public
absolutely?
Access.
Oh, they taking good care of us.
Unbelievable.
My last comment about baseball and the Red Sox is this: the summer, and that's how you say it when you grow up in Boston. The summer is way more fun when the Red Sox are good and competitive. So come on, boys.
Boston or YD or both?
All Red Sox. No, the Boston Red Sox. I mean, you guys are with I love YD. I'm on board, but I'm talking the Boston Red Sox here.
All right.
And when they're good, it's just more fun to follow it and be involved. So be good. And you can catch this amazing program on Westwood Media, YouTube, Spotify on our podcast, and Apple Podcast. So you should hop on board because this is America's fastest growing, hottest podcast / TV show going on right now.
That's what I'm told.
So hop in.
By who?
Him.
Set you up for that one.
So thanks for watching and listening, everybody. That'll wrap up this exciting episode of Boston Sports Nuts. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for watching Boston Sports Nuts. You can find all of our episodes available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. For more information, go to westwoodmediacenter.tv or follow Boston Sports Nuts on Facebook, Instagram, and X.